Right after Labor Day, I started on my book tour for The Joy You Make. In one way, it seemed like the wrong time to extol the virtues of joy. Whether red, blue or purple, we were all facing the November elections, economic worries, the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas, and for me, in western North Carolina, the devastation left by Hurricane Helene. To be honest, just writing that long sentence boosted my cortisol levels. At the same time, I kept hearing from old friends and new acquaintances how much we need joy, more joy, in these challenging times. I can't forget what Thomas Aquinas, the philosopher and theologian, once said: "Man cannot live without joy." I believe it to be true. Without hope, light or joy, we're lost in the dark, circling the drain. But then the question would shift, as I was asked repeatedly: is it even possible to find joy right now? Joy comes in different forms that we experience daily. Truthfully, I had wondered that myself, since I'm certainly no Pollyanna. In fact, I've often been referred to as Eeyore, the gloomy donkey in the Winnie the Pooh books. Need a break? Play the USA Today daily crossword puzzle. That's to say, by nature, I'm a glass half empty kind of guy. But in the 2 years I spent researching joy, I have to admit my horizons expanded. At the outset, I thought joy needed fireworks, like New Year's Eve, July 4th or your wedding night. As it turns out, Big Bang joy is just one kind, called ecstatic. There's also what's called serene joy, the kind you experience on a quiet nature walk. There's religious joy, which many experience in a house of worship. There's even Schadenfreude, the delight we take in someone else's misfortune, and Freudenfreude, its cousin, and the joy we find in someone else's successes or happiness. Opinion: Trump guts Kennedy Center while JFK's disgraceful nephew stays silent. The point I came to understand is that there are so many different kinds of joy, both within us and surrounding us. Once we realize that, it becomes so much easier to experience joy on a daily basis, even in times like these. Skeptical. Studies from the recent past, namely during the COVID-19 pandemic, found that a significant majority of us, 83% in one case, found some, or a lot, of joy. One researcher told me, initially to her surprise, that people were able to find silver linings in their darkest times that helped to create joy. Community connections get right to the heart. Most vividly, I remember how, during the pandemic, throngs of New Yorkers who came out every evening at 7 p.m. to cheer and clap for the city's first responders. In a poignant video essay, the New York Times captured those early days with photographs and tweets. Among them, the cheering that began in late March gives people, from their separate windows, terraces, fire escapes, stoops, and rooftops, a way to connect. Most vividly, I remember how, during the pandemic, throngs of New Yorkers who came out every evening at 7 p.m. to cheer and clap for the city's first responders. In a poignant video essay, the New York Times captured those early days with photographs and tweets. Among them, the cheering that began in late March gives people, from their separate windows, terraces, fire escapes, stoops, and rooftops, a way to connect. Each night, it begins with a few claps, building to a standing ovation for the hundreds of thousands of people saving lives and keeping the city running: healthcare providers, emergency medical workers, grocery workers, delivery riders. The common thread I saw in both those images and words was the importance of community or connection, and gratitude. Opinion: turning 40 wasn't what I thought it would be. But aging has its upsides for millennials. Recently, I asked my social media followers how they were experiencing joy right now. Here's some of what they told me. Hand out granola bars to people standing on the curb who need some kindness. Being kind is magical. Keeping a gratitude journal. I jot down one thing every day to focus on the positive things in my life. Playing board games with friends. Making soup and sharing it with friends. Baking, hanging with friends who bring me joy. Lots of volunteer work with dogs and cats. Then, naturally, there were the suggestions that made me smile if not laugh. Listening to the pre-dawn song of the crows and doves. Letting a dog stare at me while I eat. And Duke basketball, which I'm sure leaves Tar Heel fans anything but joyful. In short, an easy-to-follow recipe: connection, helping others, gratitude, kindness, staying active and, yes, consuming lots of calories all help us to find and share joy. Stephen Petro is a columnist who writes on civility and manners and the author of 7 books, including The Joy You Make and Stupid Things I Won't Do When I Get Old. Follow him on Threads at mr.steven.petro.